What is happening, budget builders, and welcome back to the channel. We're here with the 911. If you notice, we have our bench out. We have parts strewn out everywhere, and that's because we're working on final assembly of this car. I am so ready to get this thing done.
How's it going? I'm Michael, and this is Budget Builds. My dad and I bring rusty, crusty old cars back to life.
Alright, so the first thing that I want to get finished up on this car is you'll notice we have that bumper back off. And that's because I had a few bushings we needed to get put on. We have some new hardware and new bolts. But now it's time to go ahead and start finishing getting this wrapped up. And we need to get these quarter extensions put on, or filler panels, whatever you want to call them. And so you've got that. You'll have little gaskets that go in between there. And I have all new hardware as well. So we were short a couple of these nuts, timed, whatever you want to call these, the little things that go on there. So grabbed an extra filler, pop those off of there. We can get them clicked on here, and then we can start getting that bolted on. All right, so first you'll get it up in here, get your bolts started. Oh yeah, time to get the front lip back on.
Hey, do we still want to know?
I don't think so. It won't hurt you as long as you stay away from it. You need me to come get it?
Where are you?
Alright, so the next step here on the front end with that bumper up here is to actually get our bellows on. Now, I bought brand new ones. They were not the most expensive, but not the cheapest, and they suck. They literally are wacky, don't fit. So the ones that were on this car were shot. Obviously, they broke bolts off and everything. This was a set that came with all those parts that we got, that whale tail or T-tray and that roof top thing that we got. And so they're pretty nasty from being painted around. They have a few speckles and stuff, but they're still nice and pliable, and they're not dry rotted. So they will work well for now until we can get another nice set to put on this car. So let's go ahead, wash these up, and start fitting. Now with that, this is basically, to me, is what's going to give a lot of that front bumper adjustment in and out, up and down, and it'll kind of get us right where we need to be. Obviously, there's some play room, some wiggle room with how these are designed. That's why they're bellows. But we want to match it up very nicely to the other side so we can get that top lip put on right here. Alright, other than a few little paint smears that didn't want to come off of there, came out looking pretty good. Like I said, it's nice and flexible still, so we can start Okay, so the bumper here is actually sitting the whole thing's sitting too high. So you have adjustments, I don't know if you can see up in here. We'll actually take these loose and then we can drop this whole bumper down. The other side we had to come up with, this side we gotta go down with to get it just the way we need it to. There we go. Weather is crazy, isn't it? 85 degrees last week and sunny, and it's not even quite 60 and rainy. Blech. Sorry, I'm sure y'all will be able to hear the rain. But now we can go ahead and get that filler lip panel thingy stuck in here. Now it's going to be a little fun. We'll get up from underneath and get the screw stuck in, and we also have the screws in the back side here. We have all new hardware for that. This is what came with the kit from Germany. Let's go ahead and start getting this thing all stuck together. All right, so I ended up cutting the clip there because I was having a heck of a time getting that thing on there just because of, I don't know, maybe you're supposed to mount that before you mount the bumper, I'm thinking. So, because it was a little fun. But we did get it. We got it all the screws in there. We got it screwed from the inside as well, and everything's mounted nicely. I did go ahead and just for the heck of it, slap this on. I don't have the clips for it yet. I ordered the inserts, but then realized a bunch of the clips were broken. So that's just on there just to get everything tied in together. And it is coming out nicely. It is so cool to be putting, you know, even though they're used parts, get them cleaned up and put them on this fresh paint. Oh, it's so nice seeing everything finally tie in together. All right, so we did go ahead, get all of our little bumper clip inserts and then the clips themselves for that front rubber strip. So we can go ahead and get all that put on and be done with that front bumper. So these just go right in here. Oh, maybe. Yep. There we go. All right, it fought me, but we finally got it. So now we can take our rubber strip here, and you'll take these and they actually go in here and then twist. Go in here, they'll twist and clip in like so. Let's get them all in here and get this thing back on the bumper. There you have it, all nice and clipped on. All right, now I want to go ahead and get this rear bumper installed, really tying in the car and everything. We can go ahead and get those filler panels put on and the rear bellows so we can continue shaping up the rear of this car, getting all these fresh new parts on, these cleaned up parts and restored parts, really bringing this car all together. Now, we have one of the original rear bumper bars here. The other one was bent, so we picked up a new one. We have a nice set here. Let's go ahead with our new rubber mounts installed and get these bolted in. Now, one thing you do not want to forget when putting your brackets back on is the ground on both sides for your tail lights. are mounted right there. I'm not gonna lie, one nice thing about putting all this back on is getting all these stinking parts from around the garage, because there is Porsche parts literally everywhere. And for those of you wondering, I did go through and actually tumble these, get all the paint and grime cleaned off and the rust, and then I went ahead and put, other than one spot right here where our ground will sit, I went ahead and put a heavy duty clear engine enamel on that, so we know that it'll be nice and tough and be able to get some rock chips and stuff up under there, but still look pretty decent and it won't rust. Okay. Someone stuck this wiring through here. Alright, so the gasket was supposed to be here today to actually finish up this rear bumper area, start getting our filler panels on and everything, but instead, a little light bulb showed up. And that's not going to work for that. So I reached back out to Auto Geek and hopefully they can get us one sent here in the next couple days, and then we can get that wrapped up. But there's just so much that is about to be finished up on this car. Alright, so you'll notice we have the engine off of its stand because we're just about ready to get this thing put back in the car. Before we do that, we need to go ahead and mate that 915 5-speed transmission back up to this thing. And obviously, if you'll notice right here, we have some wear, we have some rust that needs to be cleaned off of this flywheel. Now, a good way to do that is take this to a machine shop. We'll go ahead and be sure it's in spec, and then they can blanch or grind it and give us a nice, good surface for that clutch to stick to. So we'll just grab our impact here, and it has a, what size was that? A 12 millimeter 12 point. Will you hand me a hammer really quick, please, Dad? Thank you. Hopefully it's... Alright, some of those are a little tight. So they're so tight in there, even with a breaker bar, it's trying to loosen the, we've got a wrench on the crank, but we don't want to loosen that crank bolt up, so we're going to try. Oh, this is crazy. I need to push down. I got this, you just do you. I was trying to. There she goes. Okay. Just need to get the right leverage. Here, come. Bolts, man. That one just came on. I'll focus the pilots in there. Oh, look at all our nuts. Thing's full of nuts. Pretty nutty. Crispy, crispy. Pilot's not too bad, but probably wouldn't hurt to just go ahead and replace it while we got that off. All right, you'll notice we have all kinds of goodies loaded up in the back of the truck. Both of our extra fuel tanks that Chris gave us, our oil tank for the car, our oil cooler, and that flywheel. So first stop, I'm gonna run this to a machine shop, get them to blanch or grind it, check everything out with it, and then I'm running the rest of this to a radiator shop, because on these older tanks, they can actually take just like they do the older radiators and boil them out and coat them in everything And so I'm gonna go ahead and get them to check the oil cooler out, make sure everything looks good there. Check our oil tank out, go ahead and clean it out, make sure there's no trash in it, make sure it looks really good as well, and then decide which tank is the better of the two, and boil that one out and get it ready to go as well. All right, you'll notice we have an empty truck bed, and that is because we went ahead and got both tanks dropped off so we could choose the best one, the oil cooler and the oil tank, and he's gonna go ahead and get those knocked out this week so we can get them back, put in the car before we go ahead and get the engine back in there. All right, so we're here at D&S Automotive Machine Works, just down the road from my house, where a friend of mine, Greg, has gone ahead and taken care of that flywheel for us. You can see, pretty cool, old school machine shop, just the way we love them. And he threw it here on the flywheel grinding machine and knocked it down there for us. And we've got a nice smooth surface. Now, how much did you end up knocking off of that?
Took about 12 thousandths off of it.
Okay, took about 12 thousandths. And the biggest reason we had to end up using that flywheel, because obviously it is balanced to our engine, and so we need to try to keep that as long as we can. So, cool deal. All right, and there we have it, looking fresh and ready to go. Still in spec. So we do need a new disc. This one, although looks brand spanking new, I don't want to take a chance of using it, but I do want to get this rust cleaned off of that pressure plate, and we are going to use that, and that is because it is a SOX 225mm aluminum racing clutch or heavy duty clutch, and they're like $900. This one's still, like I said, brand new, other than the little bit of rust that was on it. So we might as well use that. So I'm gonna take our little cleaner wheel here. Let's get all this rust knocked off and make sure everything looks good the way we think it will. All right, and there you have it, looking much better. It has some very, very light pitting here and there, but we have a nice smooth surface, just the way we want it, and I think it'll bite really nicely. And like I said, it was practically new. You can tell it has very, very little wear, and so does the clutch disc. But with shipping the way it is, stuff's a little slow right now, but I'm thinking hopefully later on this week we'll have that disc, we can get this slapped together, we can get it back on the transmission, we get the transmission back on the motor, we can get the engine and transmission in that car. Well, for the engine to run and everything to work properly, we obviously need to get some wiring back in the car. Now, we do have the center harness that goes through the tunnel, and it's in pretty good shape, but the front was all chewed up and there were some issues with the engine harness itself. So we actually picked up on eBay this front harness. It's in pretty good shape. It needs a little bit of work, but it's in much better shape than ours was. We got to start deciphering and figuring out this rat's nest of wiring. My goodness. So we've got an old school, it was a Haynes book with some wiring diagrams. Found some stuff online, and it's time to just start going crazy and figuring out where everything goes. So as you can see, we're kind of getting everything just drug out, laid out everywhere. I mean, this is an entire car's harness. And what we'll do is pick and choose the best pieces. So like this front harness off of our car is really good shape. I just need to go through and fix a connection here that's been boogered up. And then I'm probably gonna have to replace this little plug right there where mice have chewed on it. And the reason I'm gonna have to use that is because this has all of our horn wiring in it for our road horns, those big fancy red horns that we have. This car did not have that, so it also had a single horn relay instead of our big double relay, and thankfully this one's pretty good shape, so we'll clean that up as well. And what we'll have to do is kind of clean up, and on our connections we'll be using red heat shrink style, so this will give us a nice good seal. You can take our heat gun, it'll close that up and seal off our connections, and then when we're done, I'm gonna wrap everything in this Tessa tape. Now this is kind of a cool felt style tape, and this is actually factory for the newer Volkswagens, but I just think it has a really nice look, and it'll look really good in this car with everything. And it gives it, let me see what harness. Will you grab your cup really quick, please? I've been using that, and it just makes for a really nice, pretty harness. And so that's what we'll use on the 911 as well.
Opened his head up, top of his head, and she pulled out her stapler and stapled his head shut.
Good grief.
At the time, probably a 10, 12-year-old kid, you know. And
Here you go, let me step in your head.
yeah, exactly. Wasn't there? Ugh.
So this is hard and chewed up. This one's nice, pliable, and looks really good. And obviously, so what I did was, you see this is just barely bigger than the wire, but even so, I stepped them differently so they're in different spots, so it's not all clumped in one. It'll leave us with a nice skinny thin harness, just like it would be. And we'll go ahead and just wrap this entire thing up with our tape and have it looking good. We can go ahead and get this one in the car.
All right, first piece of wire going back in the car. So we've got clips up underneath here. We'll be running this. This goes up in here. It's really kind of a pain. So we got to get this run through there. It all kind of comes back to you once you start doing it. All of this needs to go. We need to clean that a little bit up first. This will go into the light socket.
What goes up into the bucket?
The
whole...
Yeah, the big crazy thing goes up into that bucket. All right, so we got this up through here. I didn't realize this was a different size, or forgot to look, the 964 fender versus the 930. So what we will have to do is end up ordering that right grommet for this, and we'll have all that together. And obviously, this is your drain hole. I do need to order the drain for that, the little grommet that goes in the drain. And then whatever grommet works here will also have, because there's not another hole for our marker lights to come through, it'll also have the little spot for our marker lights to come through. So we'll get that coming on the way. All right, so we have our harness there. As you can see, we got our main ground spot here cleaned up. We have this ground here temporarily. We'll have to figure out some kind of battery solution, whether we put it here or we end up putting it down in here. And when we do, then we'll be able to ground to do everything the way that we need to. So obviously this is our wires that are going to need to be attached to the fuse block. This is the relay. We went ahead and pulled these back through the floor. I need to get the grommets put in there, but we do have some more wiring. Obviously, we're going to use as much as we can of what came out of the car there. So we'll get all this cleaned up. It'll be going back there too. And you can see we have our whole block there all cleaned up, ready to go. We have all these. Obviously, a couple of these still have a little bit of rust on the screws, so we may get a whole new set, or we may end up going through and actually putting blade fuses in there. But if you've had these little cars, you know these do work okay, as long as you keep them cleaned up. So now with that ready to go in, we can start getting some of this connected, and we can start figuring out where we need to move from, because there is so much wiring that still has to go back into this car. And, whew, a lot of fun. All right, so we have this main piece of harness all cleaned up and everything, and it attaches up in there with our relays. And again, here is our ground spot, and just like down here, we need to go ahead and get that all nice and cleaned up so all of our grounds that make a connection there are good to go. I'm sure. Can you grab the...
Say it again. What do you want me to grab?
The one black down. Alright, so there's our last main bit of harness there. I can go ahead and get everything connected in here so we can get our panel put up where it needs to be. Obviously, there's a few more spots I need to work on, but I've got to start getting switches and gauges in this car so I can really start figuring out what needs to go where and what needs to be repaired, what doesn't, what can be done away with. But for the most part, everything's actually coming out really good. Everything's flowing. It's just a matter of getting started. It's very daunting, but once you start moving with it, and be sure you take pictures. Been a long time since this car was this crusty. Take all those pictures and just start sticking it back together. So just keep on moving with it. So Dad is currently getting these clipped back through where all the dash stuff plugs in, and he said it's just a walk in the park, didn't ya? Easy peasy. You ever seen an old man crawl up under a dash like that? All right, after a couple hours of tracing down, figuring out, getting everything on, whew, we have it all in there. It doesn't look like it is a lot. That's a lot. But we got it. Now we just need to get this bolted on. Wiring's looking the way it needs to. The way it needs to. Whew. It is everywhere. There's a lot of wiring, but it's a whole lot better than it used to be. All right, there's everything bolted up in there nicely. So at some point of time, somebody put some other kind of fuel pump in here, so the relay had been done away with. We have the one from our other harness there, and so I will need to work that in once we get our fuel pump. It actually goes up underneath kind of where your rack and pinion is on this car, and so that'll be something we have to figure out as we figure out the fueling system. So we do have it, and it won't be too bad to get put in there. But for now, I want to kind of wrap this area up. We need to order fuses and everything still. But thanks again to Chris Parkinson. Be sure to go check his channel out. I'll put a link to it down in the description. Good grief. All those parts he hooked us up with. We have a nice little cover here. And there we go. Funny little stripes, but hey. Really starting to look like a car again under here, isn't it? All right, we can go ahead now, and I've been wanting to for a while, and get our smuggler's door put back on. And boom. Very nice. Ooh, this thing's dirty up in here. And there you have it, looking so much better. It's those little bits that really tie this entire front compartment together. Obviously, we still have a good bit of work to do with our wiring, getting it buttoned up, but obviously we need to get our switches and gauges that we're going to use in this car in the car so we can finish tying all that up the way we need to. All right, y'all. Well, that will wrap it up for this episode. I know it's a little bit all over the place. There's so much going on with this car. Trying to get everything tied in, but we're just a couple steps, if not the next step, is to get that engine transmission in there. I actually sat down last night and the night before and probably ordered about 15 to 20 items that you'll see in the next video on this car. That is going to wrap it up. In the next video, the engine and transmission will be in, and hopefully we can hear this thing run. We're really close to driving this thing. I am so excited. It's been a major, it was supposed to be just a simple build, full restoration, but we're very close, and I'm excited for this thing. I cannot wait to drive this thing around. If y'all are enjoying this and our other builds we have going on, be sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. And thank you so much, as always, for the incredible love and support that we've had on this channel. We're so close to the 100,000 mark, and I couldn't do it without y'all. Peace out, and catch y'all on the flip side.